There's already been some upsets that are predicted going into Indian Wells because I just know the competition will be, as I said in multiple episodes before, really open. I truly think anyone can win that Indian Wells title. And I know Alcaraz and Iga are trying to achieve their three-peat, which is 3 titles in a row for 3 years. I feel like there's a lot of competition, and yeah, I feel like a lot of surprising upsets already happened, and I can't wait to break it down for you guys. Welcome, tennis fans, to Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, Ivy Zhang. In today's episode, I will be talking about the first week of Indian Wells. So let's just get right into it. I want to start off with the women's side, and I just want to talk briefly about some matches that really caught my eye, and I will be linking links for you guys to check it out if you guys are interested in the highlights. So I think coming into this tournament, a lot of people expected it to be relatively open, as I said before in the introduction, because Aryna Sabalenka really didn't do well during the Middle East swing. So is Iga Swiatek, and I think a lot of people really favored maybe Madison Keys, the new Grand Slam winner, to go really far in this tournament because obviously this is her first tournament back, but she also have the support of the US crowd. And for me, I really expected players like Naomi Osaka to shine because I think she had some pretty promising form in Australia. However, there was a huge question mark on her part because she had an abdominal injury, so we really couldn't tell how she performed. And someone else that I really looked forward to watching is Belinda Bencic, who came back this year and immediately won a 500 title. I think those are the players like Jessica Pegula, Danielle Collins, Mira, and Andreeva, who I think really have a chance of going far in this tournament. And so far, I think the results have been sort of aligned with my expectations. The one result that did catch me a little bit off guard is Naomi Osaka, who lost to Osorio in the first round with a score of 4-6, 4-6. I watched this match, and I think the main takeaway is there were just some crucial points, like some really easy put away shots, and Naomi should have been able to just end a point there, but sometimes she'll just miss it right into the net. And I think that just really have to do with like not playing for a long time, because as I said before, playing like an actual match compared to practice matches are really different. But the bright side is we do have Miami Open, which is another 1,000 tournament that's coming up like immediately after Indian Wells, and I think Naomi might be looking forward to getting better results there, because I think this was just low. The expectations, I think she probably had like pretty much a lot of expectations going in, but I think the result definitely didn't meet her expectations. But overall, I think she played some pretty good points. There was one point where she came up to the net and then she got pushed back, I believe, and then she hit an amazing forehand down the line passing shot. I'm going to leave a highlight for you guys if you guys want to go check it out, but it was a pretty great shot. And I think there were just some pretty good moments in that match. And then we'll move on to some other matches that I want to talk about. So the one with Alicia Parks and Anna Kalinskaya. So for Kalinskaya, I think we had a lot of expectations of her from last season because she did really well in the last season, especially in the Middle East swing. However, towards the end of last season and so far in this season, she hasn't been performing well at all. She's been withdrawing from a lot of different tournaments, and I feel like the results just hasn't been what she wanted to. So let's give a recap of her year so far. So in Brisbane, she lost in round 1 against Ashlyn Kruger. In Adelaide, she also lost to Belinda Bencic after withdrawing. Australian Open, she withdrew from the tournament. And then in Singapore, she made it to the semifinals, but she lost to Anna Lee. And it was also a walkover. In Qatar, she lost in the round of 64. In Dubai, she also lost in a round of 64. And in Indian Wells, she lost in the first round. So results haven't really been resulting for Anna Kalinskaya. And I think that's different for Alicia Parks, who, in my opinion, is not really a stable player. I feel like sometimes she does pretty well, but sometimes it's just unexpected losses. But I think she's been making like some pretty stable runs. So for example, in Dubai, she made it to the round of 32. In Qatar, she also made it to the round of 32. I feel like although some of her runs are just, like for example, in Australia, she didn't go through the qualifying despite being the number 1 seed. But I just feel like she's been getting some consecutive runs recently, so that result really didn't surprise me, but it's a match that I do want to point out. And speaking of another match I really do want to point out is Emma Raducanu versus Moyuka Uchijima. So Emma Raducanu, I think one of her goals this year is to play more tennis, because last year she's been just bothered deeply with injuries, and I think every player knows that in order to be successful, you can't just play the big Grand Slams, and if you have to play through qualifying, that's something you just have to do. And I think after making, I think, a pretty decent run at the Australian Open, she realized, because she got beaten by Iga Swiatek in the third round with a score of 1-6 and 0-6, so a breadstick and a bagel. I think that really showed to the world and to her that there's still a long way to go if she wants to potentially put herself back into the group that's like potential Grand Slam champions. And I mean, this result didn't really surprise me. I just want to talk more about Uchijima, who I think played amazing, and she's currently playing against Coco Gauff. I'm recording this on a Saturday afternoon, and she's currently 2-1 up a break against Coco Gauff in the first set. So I mean, I think she's doing pretty well, and I just really want to give credit to Uchijima. I think a lot of people talked down to Emma, saying that she really didn't perform well. I think Uchijima played really great. And then I also want to talk about Danielle Collins and Mira Andreeva. So this was Danielle Collins' peak sort of run last year. She made it really far in Indian Wells, and she won Miami, obviously, and she had that like magical run. And I think she was going to retire last year, but she decided not to. A part of the reason is definitely because of this run. I think this run really showed to her that she really have a lot left in the tank. And obviously, I know she suffered from chronic illnesses, but I think she really think she have a chance of pushing it one last time. And I'm not sure if this is going to be her last season, but I feel like so far the results haven't been in her favor. However, she did battle through the round of 64 in Indian Wells, and she's going to the round of 32, and her opponent will be Svitolina, which I think will be a great match. But I think, yeah, I put money on, I would say I want Collins to win. And another match I want to talk about is Mira Andreeva, because I think Mira Andreeva really is one of the favorites coming into this tournament, especially after her 1,000 title in Dubai. She's playing for the round of 32. She's having a rematch against Clara Towson, who is her finals opponent in Dubai, and I think she's going to get through this. I feel like Mira Andreeva really worked on just absorbing the pace of another players, because her ball technically isn't really fast-paced. I feel like she really likes to use the pace of her opponent to just hit angles, and I think she did that really well against Towson, and I really hope she can continue that, because she is the only teenager in the entire WTA to be ranked inside the 100. like inside 100, and she's like what, like inside top 10. So she's like really, really far ahead compared to the other teenagers. And to think that she's only like a day older, she's like a day younger than me is insane. And yeah, I really wish her the best because I truly think she's an amazing player. And then I also want to talk about players who I think really need a run. I think Bia Haddad-Maia, Daria Kasatkina, Mary Zachary, Paolini, and Bekic, maybe even Coco Gauff, I'd say, really need a run because I think their results haven't been what they expected it to be. And I think especially for Paolini, last year has just been such like a huge step up from what it had been before that it really caught, I think, everyone off guard. And I'm not underestimating her at all. I think she's able to top that even more. But I just feel like she really should, like, she deserves a win at one of the bigger tournaments because she's such a joy on the tennis tour, and I can't wait to see her out there again. And Madison Keys, I also want to mention because she got through her opponent, Anastasia Potapova, pretty easily, 6-3, 6-0. And I really don't want to judge her based on one performance, but I think she played great. I mean, she bageled Potapova, who is another incredible ball striker. And yeah, here are just some matches that I think people should look forward to once my episode comes out. So I think a match between Mukova and Siniakova will be like such a great match because both of these players are known for their volley skills, and they both play with so much finesse that I think this will be a great match. And so is Iga Swiatek and Yastremska. I think Iga also deserves a run. I think her Middle East swing hasn't been what she wanted it to be. She lost in Abu Dhabi. She lost in Qatar in the semifinal against Ostapenko, and she was, I think, like champions for like 2 or 3 years in a row before, and everyone expected her to win because conditions really favored her with just like she really likes to play in the wind. But she lost to Ostapenko, which, I mean, for me it wasn't unexpected. It's the way she lost because there wasn't signs of any improvement. It just, like, before this match, I thought she was maybe every time she's like in a struggle, she knows how to like maybe change up her methods a little bit. Instead of just purely striking the ball, she knows to go up the net or just slice or just do something a little bit different. But this match was really frustrating, I think, to her because like she just resorted to doing the same thing, which is just to hit the balls as hard as she can. And that didn't work against Ostapenko when Ostapenko is on because she's such an incredible ball striker and she's able to just hit winners off of Iga's serves like constantly and just able to absorb the spin. And I think that's something Mira Andreeva also learned in Dubai, and that's how she beat Iga. So I think Iga really wants to get a run here, and I mean, she is the defending champion, but we do have some pretty rough competition with Aryna Sabalenka, who I think is also hungry for a title, as well as Madison Keys, who I think clearly the entire US crowd will be cheering for her. But yeah, I think my prediction is I think the finals will feature either Madison Keys, Aryna Sabalenka, or Iga Swiatek, and the other side will just feature another player such as like Mukova or Paolini, someone that's not necessarily who we expect to be on top. So yeah, that's my overview of the women's side for Indian Wells. We'll take a little break and we'll move on to talk about the men's side. Okay, welcome back. I hope you guys, like I did, went off to just have a little water and enjoy the rest of today's episode. So now I want to just overview the guys tournament and just talk about some upsets that happened. I think for the guys side, there's actually more upsets. So I want to start off by talking about the implications of Jannik Sinner not being here. So I think For me, I really looked forward to a Jannik Sinner versus Carlos Alcaraz clash at one of these major finals. I think that's something every tennis fan will dream of. But unfortunately, Jannik Sinner is serving his 3-month ban, so he's not going to be here. So for the number 1 seed, we do have Alexander Zverev. And it might be foreshadowing, but he lost, and he actually had a not really great Middle East. Sorry, no, he didn't play the Middle East. He played the clay court swing, which is another potential series of tournaments you can play. So like Argentina, Rio Open, and those are played on clay. I think he really wanted to play for those tournaments because he really wanted to get the points, get the title, and potentially prepare himself for Roland Garros, which I think is his best chance at winning a Grand Slam. However, that did not happen. His run at the clay tournaments were not great at all. He didn't get a single title, and in Indian Wells, I think just from being out of practice from playing hard courts, he lost in the first round against Griekspoor, who obviously had some upsets before, such as upsets against Djokovic last year, but he lost to Griekspoor, and just like that, the number 1 seed is out. And I think for me, that's pretty surprising, because even though I did expect Zverev to not go far, I didn't expect him to be a title contender at all, but I expected him to at least at least go to maybe the 3rd round, but he didn't. And I think with him out, I don't really think it means much because I didn't view him as a title contender either way. I just feel like Carlos have a relatively easy job compared to Iga Swiatek to defend his titles. But I do want to mention some matches that I think, and just some players that I think are worth watching. So one of them being Gael Monfils. So the reason why I want to mention Gael Monfils is because I feel like he's been having an incredible season. He beat Taylor Fritz at Australia, and even though his body like completely gave out like the next round, I still think after that amount of rest, even though I don't know how much he can sustain a top level for, but any run by him is magical, and I think the Indian Wells crowd will love his energy just from his athleticism and how much he plays. So I think that will be a pretty fantastic story. I also want to talk about Medvedev, who I think really... So here are some players I think really need a title or just need a run. So Medvedev, Rune, and let's also put Musetti in there. So I know Musetti is kind of different because Musetti has been injured, but I still think Australia hasn't been the greatest for him, and he needs to prepare for the clay swing and the grass swing, which he is better at. So I think this might just be like a warm-up tournament for him, and his potential focus should be on the clay swing with like Madrid. And for Holger Rune, I think he did really well in Australia, and I think he might be looking to like maybe go to the final or go to the semifinals here, and I think he really have a chance if he's not losing focus. And for Medvedev, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I feel like it's so unpredictable with him. He's just not been at his best at all. He's been losing to players in the quarterfinals and just not getting a title. I think not even getting a 500 title that I think he needs. Compared to him, someone different is Stefanos Tsitsipas, who actually won a title, and I think that title really like boosted his confidence. He switched to a different racket and he used like a tape to black out the racket, but I think regardless it completely boosted his confidence, and I think just coming in he is a potential title contender just because of how he played, and when he's at his top level he really have the ability to go to the final of a Grand Slam, to go to the final of a Masters tournament. And I think I also do want to talk about Draper and Fils. So I want to start off with Draper first. So Draper just beat Fonseca like 20 minutes ago, and this, not really unexpected, but to bagel Fonseca in the second set is unexpected, because I feel like both of these players are relatively young. I know Draper's a little bit older, but I think just to have, because Fonseca, I think the crowd is cheering for him just because of how talented he is and just how hyped up the whole thing around him is. And I think just for him to have the guts and have the physical ability to bagel Fonseca is pretty impressive to me, and that's speaking volumes, and I think he's going to go far. And I also do want to talk about Taylor Fritz, who, this is his breakthrough tournament, and I'm really excited for this tournament for Taylor Fritz because I am a Taylor Fritz stan. I think he's really great. And yeah, I just feel like he really needs a run here. His just entire season so far hasn't been great. He lost in the quarterfinal of Delray Beach, which is also his tournament. He lost in Dallas, he lost in Australia, and now we have Indian Wells. So I really hope he gets to go through. I really hope he goes to the final or even the semifinal. I think that would be enough for me. Okay, now I just wanted to talk about some other players. So let's talk about Djokovic first. So I can confirm that Andy Murray is in Indian Wells with Djokovic, and beside Australian Open, the last time we saw him play was in Dubai, but I think everyone could tell that he wasn't 100%. He wasn't himself at all, and I think he's definitely more recovered because time has passed, but I think his goal isn't to get a title here. But obviously, I feel like he's always dreaming big. But I feel like his goal here is just to get his body back into the winning mode. And he is playing a match today against Baltic Van Zenskov, which could be really interesting because Baltic is known to pull upsets like the one against Carlos Alcaraz last year. But I think probably no problems for Djokovic there. But I think his goal is to just play against players at the top level and see how he matches up against them, because I think his goal really isn't to win, but it's just like match up against those players. He already beaten Alcaraz before, so okay, what can he do more? Can he beat, obviously I know Zverev is out of the picture, but can he beat like Medvedev, Rublev? I think that's something, or like even Tsitsipas, is that something he's able to do, or is that like, because I think these players are a level below like Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, but at the same time Djokovic had a really hard time beating Alcaraz, so is he like having a hard time beating the players at a lower tier as well? I think that's something he really needs to find out, and I think this is a great tournament for him to do it because most of these players are playing the tournament. So yeah, and I also want to talk about Alcaraz. I briefly mentioned it before, but I truly do think Alcaraz will have, I think, a pretty easy job to win this tournament. Obviously, just the thing with Djokovic is really unexpected because I didn't expect him to lose to Djokovic in Australia at all. I don't know. I just feel like Carlos Alcaraz, unlike Jannik Sinner, who just is able to get through players pretty easily, like players that are like significant in like the first few rounds. But I feel like for Carlos Alcaraz, we often like associate him with like surprising upsets. And I really hope that doesn't happen because I want to see like a Carlos Alcaraz versus Novak Djokovic match. And let's just look at Carlos Alcaraz's year so far. I think that title in Rotterdam really boosted his confidence because he never had a hardcourt indoor title before. But his year, he also played in Qatar where he lost to Lehechka, which, I don't think it's a surprising loss because, yeah, it was not surprising at all. But at the same time, I think he really wants a title here. He only made it to the quarterfinal of Australia, which for any other player, I think is a pretty high standard. But for him, I think he really wants more, and I think Indian Wells is a great time for him to do it. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's all for today's episode. I know this one is relatively longer, but that's because we have more to talk about. I will be leaving links for, I think I'll leave a link for the Indian Wells website if you guys want to go check out the website. And I also leave a link to some of the matches that I mentioned. So yeah, if you guys haven't subscribed to my social medias, you should. It's at Tennis Traverse. That is at Tennis Traverse on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you are listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And I think that's all for today, you guys. I really hope I can see you guys next week, where we just talk briefly and debrief the second week of Indian Wells and hopefully predict a finals winner. Yeah. So I'll see you guys next week. Bye.